Open the fridge. There's milk in there and cheese and probably butter, and you didn't think twice about any of it. You just grabbed it. Now, take all of that away. No fridge, no dairy aisle, no cows that stand still and let you touch them. Put a wild bull in front of you instead. 6 feet at the shoulder, horns like scythes, strong enough to gut a lion, because lions occasionally tried and lost. That's what stood between you and your first glass of milk. Not a farm animal, a monster. And somehow, 10,000 years ago, a small group of humans looked at that thing and decided the answer was, let's live next to it and drink what comes out of it. That's the part nobody tells you. This wasn't a convenience. It was one of the strangest bets our species ever made. Milk should not have worked. The animal it came from wasn't built to be handled. The aurochs, the wild ancestor of every cow alive today, was one of the largest and most dangerous herbivores in Eurasia, painted on cave walls at Lascaux 17,000 years ago, specifically because people were in awe of it. And the humans trying to drink its milk weren't built for that either. Nearly every adult on Earth at the time lost the ability to digest lactose after infancy, the same as almost every other mammal on the planet. So picture the setup. A food source guarded by a creature that could kill you. Locked behind a sugar your own body was biologically switched off to process. Wrong animal, wrong biology, worst possible starting point. And yet, within a few thousand years, milk had become one of the most important foods in human history. It didn't happen because of one clever trick. It took a whole pile of them, stacked on top of each other, most of which we only found the evidence for in the last 15 years. The first problem was the animal itself. You cannot milk something that will kill you for approaching it. So around 10,500 years ago, in the Fertile Crescent, the region spanning modern Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, early farmers began the slow work of narrowing a wild population of aurochs into something manageable. Genetic studies trace almost the entire modern cattle line back to roughly 80 wild female aurochs from this single region. 80. The entire dairy industry, the cheese in your sandwich, the milk in your coffee, all descended from a founding population you could fit into a couple of school buses. Farmers didn't tame the aurochs so much as edit it, generation by generation, breeding for calm animals and culling the ones that acted like their ancestors. Basically running natural selection in reverse, on purpose, with a spear as backup. Once you had an animal you could stand next to, the next problem showed up immediately. Your body couldn't handle what it produced. Fresh milk is loaded with lactose, and an adult human gut without the right enzyme treats that sugar like an attack. Cramping, bloating, the whole ordeal. So people did something clever. They stopped drinking the milk and started transforming it. Cheese making strips out most of the lactose, along with the whey, leaving behind something a lactose-intolerant adult could actually eat. We know this because archaeologists found pierced pottery vessels, actual cheese strainers, at linear band ceramic culture sites along the Vistula River in Kujawia, Poland. And when scientists ran residue analysis on 50 of those sieve fragments in 2012, they came back loaded with dairy fat. Direct physical proof of cheesemaking dated to around 7,500 years ago. Humans had turned biological failure into a recipe. The first cheese wasn't a delicacy, it was a workaround. The proof of how far back this goes only exists because of a fairly recent scientific trick. Milk fat molecules can survive baked into unglazed pottery for thousands of years, and gas chromatography can pull them back out. That's how researchers pushed the earliest confirmed milk processing all the way back to the 7th millennium BC in northwestern Anatolia, the oldest direct evidence we have anywhere for humans handling milk on purpose. Basically, we caught Bronze and Stone Age farmers red-handed, using nothing but the chemical fingerprints baked into their kitchenware. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. You'd assume people evolved the ability to digest milk and then naturally started drinking it. It went the other way. Humans were milking animals and eating dairy for thousands of years before most of them could actually digest lactose properly. Simulation studies place the origin of the European lactase persistence gene, the mutation that lets adults keep producing the enzyme that breaks down milk sugar, at around 7,500 years ago in the region between the Central Balkans and Central Europe, likely among the same linear band ceramic farmers making that cheese. But originating and spreading are two different things. Ancient DNA from a Bronze Age battlefield in Germany, from warriors who died around 1200 BC, more than 4,000 years after dairying began, shows only 1 in 8 of them actually carried the gene. Everyone else was still lactose intolerant, drinking dairy anyway, in whatever fermented or strained form their gut could tolerate. It's like watching an entire continent build its economy around a food most of its population couldn't fully eat.
Dairying didn't stay confined to one region either. It spread, and it adapted to wherever it landed. In the Sahara, which back then was green, covered in grassland and lakes, not sand, pastoralist communities in what's now Libya and Algeria were processing milk from their cattle by the 5th millennium BC. Evidence again pulled straight from lipid residue baked into pottery. Different continent, different climate, same core discovery happening independently. An animal, a strainer, and a workaround for a sugar the body couldn't break down.
The strangest part of the whole story might be why the lactase gene finally did spread once it started. For a long time, the assumption was simple. Milk is nutritious, so anyone who could digest it thrived and had more kids. Recent research complicates that. A 2022 study led by teams from Bristol and University College London mapped milk use across 9,000 years of European history and found the lactase persistence trait didn't actually become common until around 1000 BC, nearly 4,000 years after dairying started. Their argument is that raw nutrition wasn't the trigger. Famine and disease were. In years of crop failure or outbreaks of illness, the gut damage caused by drinking undigested lactose became a genuine survival risk. And that's when carrying the gene stopped being a minor convenience and started being the difference between living and dying. Basically, the ability to drink a glass of milk without stomach pain may have been selected for by plague and starvation, not by breakfast.
Not every population that adopted dairy ever caught up genetically, and some never needed to. Across Central Asia, herding communities have built entire diets and economies around mares and yak milk for thousands of years, and yet most of those populations remain lactase non-persistent today. Meaning, technically, most Central Asian herders are still lactose intolerant by the standard definition, despite dairy being central to their culture for millennia. The workaround is the same one those Neolithic farmers landed on first: fermentation. Products like kumis, fermented mare's milk, break the lactose down before it ever reaches a human gut. It's a genuinely open question in the research literature why some populations evolved the gene and others just got extremely good at fermenting instead. The honest answer is, nobody's fully sure yet.
So here's where that leaves us. It took a dangerous wild animal getting bred into something docile enough to stand next to. It took inventing cheese as a chemistry hack against your own digestive system. It took thousands of years of people eating something their bodies weren't built for, betting that survival would eventually catch up to appetite. And somewhere in a famine or an epidemic, in a village nobody wrote the name of, that bet paid off, and a gene mutation spread across a continent in what is, evolutionarily speaking, the blink of an eye. Now you stand in front of a fridge, and none of that history costs you anything. You just grab the carton. Every single time you do, you're holding the end result of a 10,000-year argument between a wild bull, a stubborn sugar molecule, and a species that refused to take no for an answer.